You're listening to Co-Cast, a currently online production, where fans of games and geekdom are always welcome. Want to know more about our community? Check out currentlyonline.gg. Now, on to the show.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to episode 2 of Co-Cast. We are getting towards the end of this expansion. Tonight, I have with me two of my favorite co-hosts. I have Dev and Saph. Dev, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I cannot wait any longer. I am getting antsy. Saph, how are you?
I'm good. How are you guys?
I'm good.
Nice. I'm excited too.
How are you feeling?
So can't wait
about this, Dev?
Oh, I can't wait. I'm excited. I'm, ready for a 24-hour stream or whatever I'm going to do. I haven't decided yet, but we'll get there.
Nice.
Please do a 24-hour stream.
I know, got to get some Monster Energy drinks and whatnot. Stock your fridge.
Actually, I do Zip Fizz, and it's a energy drink that's all vitamins. So and it helps me actually a lot better. Has no sugar. It's all vitamins. Has a little bit of caffeine. And they're really good.
Oh, nice. I'm gonna have to try that.
You know what else you need to stock up on? As Cold Crow would say, you need some Kirkland signature
bars.
Exactly.
I actually was at Costco yesterday and looked for them, and I couldn't find them.
Oh, I found them a few times back when I was there, and I made Jenna pose with a selfie pose for a selfie with me. So, what did you guys do in game this week? There's been a little bit of stuff going on.
Oh boy. Yep. I did both the Alliance and Horde scenarios, and it's pretty hot out there.
So before we go any further, if you have somehow not played through the War of Thorns, now is a time to kind of skip forward a little bit because we are going to be talking about what happened in game and the Warbringers videos and the new cinematic that they happen to drop at us at like 1 o'clock in the morning. So I did not.
Yeah, that.
I did not play through the Alliance side. Did you, Dev?
I have. Yep.
Okay. So what is it similar? I mean, probably not, because
it's from the vantage point of the Alliance and how they perceive what's actually happening.
Yeah, from the Horde side, I really struggled with it. I've always thought that the Horde stood for glory and honor, and Sylvanas isn't showing that in my eyes.
But Sylvanas has always been about herself. She's never really been about the Horde. It's always been about Sylvanas and pursuing her goals.
Yeah, and ultimately keeping her people alive. Even if that's not what her people want. What were your thoughts about the whole thing, Saph?
It made me feel a little sad to be a Horde, to be honest. And I play both sides. I'm currently playing Horde because that's, where the majority of my friends are playing, but I didn't feel happy about it. I didn't feel good about it. And that's why I'm really glad that they came out with the Seraphang cinematic so we could see, a different side, that there is no honor in it. And when I played the Alliance side, I don't know if you remember, Dev, but the end quest when you have to rescue like 952 elves, night elves, I was panicking because at first, I didn't read anything. There was no spoiler alert. So I was like, there's no way I could rescue all these night elves. And I just felt like so distraught. And I guess that was the whole purpose of the quest. And it made me feel really sad.
Interesting. I will have to.
And I think we're going to.
Go ahead.
And I think we're going to see a lot of that same thing that for the Horde this week. in this upcoming one is that that struggle to evacuate people before things get too bad.
So have either of you read Before the Storm?
I have
No.
not, no.
Okay, so I've about halfway through. And early in the story, I'm talking first chapter, there's a part where is Sylvanas' bodyguard Nathaniel, is that his name? Nathaniel?
Nathanos?
Nathanos, that's what it is.
Nathanos, yeah.
I say, for some reason I was thinking Nathaniel, but Nathanos, he comes to her and he tells her that there has been a council appointed for the undead. And I'm interested to see if we see them this week, learn a little bit more about them in game. And they're not so keen on the preservation of the undead as much as Sylvanas is.
Yeah.
So one thing I do want to ask about the cinematic, is Zappy Boy the best character we've ever gotten?
So I hear, yes.
So
Everybody
far,
loves that boy.
yes. Though, in all honesty, I actually like Jaina's character. The complexity, the backstory, the everything that she's gone through up to this date. You know, it's coming to fruition as to now she really wants to go after the Horde.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Her Warbringers one gave me chills.
Oh, that was so good. The sea shanty was so good.
Yeah, I just had chills running down my spine as it was played. I'm really excited to see how her story will play out.
Yeah.
I am too. I had to actually get a little bit of a lore background from Casey because I didn't really understand what was going on in the video. But once he told me about her father and Theramore, I went back and I rewatched it and I was like, oh, wow. This is insane.
Yeah, if you ever are feeling like you're lacking on lore stuff, there's a YouTuber, Nobel87. He has some phenomenal videos, starting with his history of Warcraft, which is about an hour and 20-minute long, great to watch while like questing or something. That gives kind of a high level overview of the history of the world we play in, starting back in Warcraft 1, and then going through, I think it runs through Warlords of Draenor. And then he's got different videos on going deeper into individual subjects. So he is a really great resource because I always find myself like, who is this person? Are they important to lore? And then I go watch a Noble video and it's like, oh, he's a huge character. How can I not remember him?
Yeah, he's been recommended to me before. I will definitely check that out.
I've watched several of his videos and I enjoy them.
All right, let's get into as of tonight, we are 1 week, actually a little less than a week away from the global launch of Battle for Azeroth. By the time this episode goes up, we will be significantly more less than a week. What are you guys excited about?
I'm excited to get back into the leveling in the story. I love the storylines that they have come up with for every single expansion so far.
Yeah, I'm really excited about getting into the storyline. I didn't really explore much in the beta like I should have. But I'm also really kind of hoping to see what they do as far as like more PvP hot fixes. If they're going to, have continuous hot fixes for like the class balances. I don't know. PvP just seems a little broken right now, and that has me worried. So I'm really looking forward to when, we get into BFA and they get into, checking stuff like that out.
I think one thing that it's hard to see right now is class balance, because they really have balanced everything to 120. And we're playing at the 110 level and it's like, oh my gosh, rogues are broken.
Yes, they
are.
No Mercies was questing and she Discorded me and she said, I'm level 68. I just got ganked and one-shotted by a level 51 rogue. How does this happen? That's a little broken.
Yep. Yes.
Wow.
Especially when you go into BGs and half of the opposing team are rogues. It makes you want to leave and get their deserter buff.
Yeah, that's when you say, I'm going to go cook some Hot Pockets.
Yes.
So the global launch is Monday, August 13th, a week from tonight, at 5 p.m. server time. This is going to be interesting. Everything going live at once.
But they've had a very successful launch previously with Legion that was extremely smooth. There was not much that could have gone wrong with that at that point. And we have all the data, we have all the areas. It's just they have to open them up.
Yeah, I agree with that. What really has me worried is how rough this pre-patch experience has been.
Oh,
Yes.
with this stat squish and breaking PvP and the scenarios being short.
Quest
Yes.
logs getting deleted. And
Oh, I'm good at that. That needed to happen anyway.
Yeah. I was just thinking that would actually be a good thing for me.
That saved me time.
Yeah.
Well, but with the reason the rough pre-patch is because of the stat squish, I think. They have so many things in the game, so many items, so many skills, so many abilities, so much stuff out there that doing the stat squish is hard. And I can't imagine, like they said, like we talked about last week, doing it by hand.
Yeah.
That would be tedious.
Yeah, that definitely would be. I think and we'll talk a little bit more about this later in the podcast. But I think that there's been they've done a lot of major gameplay changes, which I'm not saying weren't warranted or needed. It just seems like there's been some bugs, and I'm really hopeful that we are past them, which will lead to a great launch experience next week.
Yep. I plan to be on at least 2 to 3 hours before the actual launch, doing who knows what, but on so that I don't have to worry about full servers.
On and not in your faction's home capital, because that's not where you want to be next week.
Yes.
When everyone logs in.
I'll be above it.
Where do you suggest people go, or
Actually,
park their tune?
Be above like Orgrimmar. Be above it, not in it.
Yeah,
but
above Orgrimmar, above Stormwind. Goldshire, if you're in Stormwind, just kind of outside. Somewhere where you're not going to get hit by that initial spike of everyone loading in, and maybe your phasing won't be as rough. Okay. The good news is tomorrow, Tuesday, August 7th, this will come out on the 8th. So if you're listening to this and you haven't yet, the Battle for Lordaeron scenario is available for everyone, even if you have not pre-ordered Battle for Azeroth. That was confirmed today in a blue post. So that is a quest that you have to do in order to continue into the Battle for Azeroth scenarios. So make sure you get that knocked out this week so you can start next week on the BFA content. Yeah. So what are your guys' plans for the first day and then that first week?
Hitting the storyline getting in there and having fun. I will probably be on at least 24 to 28 hours. Hopefully straight.
I was just thinking, be on as much as I can, but I worry about my ability to focus, especially with all of our guild chats connected. That's going to be insane. Discord's going to be hopping. Like, I'm worried that I'll be like, how like if people are ahead of you, they'll be like, do this or do that, or not just spoilers, but just like hype about like, oh, like I can't wait to get to that part. Like, so I'm actually like, I'm really excited about that. I'm excited to see, how everybody responds in comms and Discord and in game chat.
It'll be, yeah, I think
Looking forward to it.
I'm really excited to see everyone's reactions. I will take this time to be a little bit of a gentle reminder. Legion guild chat was a little interesting with the whole Ysera storyline. So just remember that not everyone has played through some of the major story spoilers. So if you wouldn't want it spoiled for you, try to avoid it for the first few days in guild chat.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Poor
poor
Ysera.
Ysera. I cried.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a hard quest line.
Yeah.
Emotionally, not quest wise, but yeah.
Yeah, it definitely was. I'm taking Friday off, but so I will be slowly grinding throughout the week and then kind of hit Friday hard. So hopefully I won't run into too many issues.
Nice. Yeah, I haven't decided if I'm going to take a day off or not. Definitely not the first day, as per your guys' advice.
This one may
in
be like the
case.
best launch ever.
Oh, I'll be
And you'll be like, well, I missed out.
Yeah.
And it was all
my
Chase's fault.
Nah, I won't blame you. I'll just be like, oh well, next year
2 years.
or the 2 years. 2 years.
So, real quick, what would signify a good launch for Blizzard? What are you guys looking for that would say that this was a clean, successful launch? I mean, every launch is going to have its little bugs, but what is kind of the mark in your head for that?
I think we touched upon some of these last podcasts, and I think we said, not a lot of bugs, not too many technical difficulties, being able to log in, and not be waiting in queue forever. Decent class balances, I'd say, is one of the big things for me.
Yeah.
And especially if most of us are going to have war mode turned on, I don't want to, like we just said about rogues, I don't want to like have a group of rogues come and make it unbearable for me to, quest, especially, because I want to enjoy the war mode. I like the PvP aspect of the game.
The first day or two, I don't think you're going to see a whole lot of the war mode activity, because people are going to be focused on leveling their characters, and then once they're able to get over to the opposing faction, then you'll see more of the war mode combat, if you will.
So that put a really funny picture in my head, Saph, and now I'm just imagining like this gang of like 40 rogues just in stealth running around, just like sapping poor souls and just draining them.
I don't know, after playing months of the same content, they might be like super bored and actually do it.
I agree with everything. Kind of just looking for, don't leave anything memorable for us to talk about 2 years from now as we're taking this podcast and the next expansion. Let's not be like, well, in BFA they did this. And oh, perfect. All right, let's go.
There is no aggro reset.
All right, we are going to be introducing a new segment on our team. We are going to be highlighting a few of our different teams. This week we have 4 different teams, 3 raid teams, and a RBG team. I will get us started with our first raid team, Risky Business. It's an alliance team. They're led by Sidrath, Rigo, and Tess. They are a mythic progression team. They run Saturdays from 8 p.m. to 12 a.m. server time. Here's their little motto. Risky Business was formed in 7.1.5 with one thing in mind: killing bosses and getting loot. We're mainly a heroic team, but there's always the possibility of grabbing some mythic kills with us. We strive to offer a team that has a laid-back atmosphere on a raid night, but be ready to buckle down and focus up if the need arises. If you're looking for a semi-hardcore team to call home, you found the right place. And Risky Business is currently recruiting multiple different classes and specs, so make sure you check them out if that sounds like your kind of team.
And I'll pick up the next one, which is Mixed Signals. And they are a horde team led by Bree, Villani, Vin, and Yarma. They are Mythic Progression. They raid Sunday nights from 7 to 11 p.m. server time. And their motto is, Mixed Signals is a one-night-a-week Mythic raid team. We are a progression-oriented group that appeals to players with a lot of real-life time restrictions. Knowledge of your spec and willingness to research encounters for your class is required. Hybrid classes are expected to develop their off-specs for raid flexibility. Although we only raid 4 hours a week, this is not a casual team, and expectations for character progression will be the same as for many other Mythic raid teams. This is a 21 plus raiding environment, and they are currently recruiting a priest who can play Shadow and Disc.
I will go ahead and do Overdraft. Overdraft is an Alliance team. Their team leaders are Arwen and David.
I would have said it.
I don't know. Their goal is just heroic. They raid Wednesdays and Sundays from 6 to 9. Their motto is Overdraft is a group of experienced players looking for like-minded people who know their class and current content. Our goal of steady progression and clearing new content weekly is supplemented with a positive atmosphere that will keep you logging in and enjoying your game time. If you are a person who spends time perfecting their classes, contributing to progression, all while bringing a positive attitude, Overdraft is for you. They are currently looking for quite a few different classes and specs.
And our last team that we're going to be focusing tonight is Heroes Never Die. They are an Alliance RBG team. They're led up by Nostalgia and Raptor. They run Sundays from 7 to 9 p.m. They are a semi-casual team. They're looking just to have fun. That's their motto. They just want to have some fun, and they have a wide variety of recruiting needs. I will say, if none of these teams fit your fancy, but you are looking to either raid or RBG next expansion, go ahead and check out our team finder, currently online.gg/team-finder. It'll also be in the show notes if you're looking for that. You can plug in your class and spec, and it'll tell you all the teams that are currently recruiting that class.
You think you do, but you don't.
So this week we are going to be focusing on a blue post. We were blessed by Ian Hazakostas in the forums, who Watcher has not showed his face in the forums in a little while. And he was talking about the leveling speed and the changes that have happened. What are your guys' thoughts on everything that he said? I was kind of surprised that him admitting the mistakes were made.
I mean, it goes back again to the stat squish, and what they tried to do, and you know, I understand that things are going to happen, especially when you do a massive squish like that, and trying to implement new systems in the future to make those kind of things easier. You know, I also don't have an issue with the leveling speed. You know, it's not necessarily meant there to be for veteran players. It's meant there for new players to enjoy the content that has already come out.
Right. And it's interesting that I understand that it'll be good for the new players. They'll be able to enjoy it. I mean, I remember when I first came into this game, Mr. Pandaria, I had no heirlooms. It took me forever to level. But I was really grateful for that because, you know, you get to learn your class and each spec. But as a veteran player now, I don't want to do that grind anymore. I like the heirlooms. I like the feel of it. Like, I've already been there and done that. At this point, you know, I just kind of want to level up my other tune and, you know, enjoy, you know, max level content. So I don't like it, to be honest.
I really sat and thought about this and thought about the leveling speed, because I've heard both concerns. People saying that it was too fast, and people saying that, you know, I've done it 50 times now, it's boring. And here's kind of what crossed my mind. We are now given a boost with every expansion that takes you to the current expansion's highest level, and you can jump right into that. The thing that made me that really crossed my mind is, what if that boost required you to have a toon that was already at max level, either on the same server or on the account, similar to DKs were in Wrath, because you couldn't make a DK unless you had, what was it, a level 65 or 70
Max level.
it was 70, and that
70.
applied until somewhere around there. That applied until Legion, I think. It may have been Warlords, but that was a requirement for a long time, and they still have a requirement for Demon Hunters. You have to have a level 70 on the server in order to be able to make one.
And I think that makes sense. It really does.
That along the same lines that came across my head, with the heirlooms in particular, right now they're just a massive gold sink. If you buy a WoW token as a fresh player, you can buy a full set of heirlooms all the way through 110 and kind of get that bonus experience and just kind of grind through. I would be curious to see, and I don't know how they would implement it with heirlooms already being in the system. But because right now it's 60, 90, 100, 110 are the tiers for heirloom. What if heirlooms you couldn't buy them until you hit level 60 on a toon, and then when you hit level 60 you could buy the level 60 heirlooms but nothing higher. When you hit 90, all your heirlooms automatically upgraded to 90 and you could buy the 90 heirlooms, and then the same from 100 and 110. It removes the gold sink requirement of it, but it also takes away that from the new player. It forces them to experience the content that was before them and not jump into end game, all while still allowing the veteran player to experience the benefits.
See, you lost me on level 60 because I I could deal with the changes until I hit 60. And then 60 through 80 is so painful. It is so slow. And it makes me want to boost. It makes me want to buy the boost. And in doing so, I'm missing out on, I don't really care that I'm missing out on the Warlords of Draenor content, but I'm missing out on Miss Pandaria content. And I love that expansion. I mean, I didn't come here until then, but I loved the storyline. I did all the quests. I enjoyed it. And I feel like that they really need to do something
and they
with 60 through 80.
Pushed out the patch or the hotfix for that either late last week. I think it was late last week. They've actually reduced the experience required for all of those levels between 60 and 80 by 18% or something like that. A pretty significant nerf to allow the faster leveling because it was taking so long to level between those.
Yeah. Oh, wow. I did not know that. And
the other thing
that was needed.
I've read quite a bit, and I'm interested to hear you guys' takes on. We've talked about the stat squish and how that caused so many issues. And this, as you mentioned, Dev, directly, a lot of these leveling issues in 8.0 are due to the stat squish, along with this squish that we had in 7.3.5, where everything was scaled. I'm almost curious if they didn't, if they should have delayed the scaling and released it along with 8.0 to balance it for that. Because I've heard a lot of people say that they feel very, very weak in the world right now.
Well, and I can see that, but at the same time, I think they needed to split those two up, the stat squish and the scaling, because they both brought their own separate problems that could have occurred. The scaling of the zones, I don't know if there were truly any issues with it. But there could have definitely been potential issues. Same as the stat squish. And we all have seen now the stat squish has caused a ton of issues. So I do believe that they should have that they needed to split those up. Now, whether they did the stat squish first and then the scaling, I don't know.
Yeah, and that's, and it's not something I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if it should have been done that way, but it is an interesting thing to think about because 6 months apart from each other, they did two massive changes to the way the world works. And like I said earlier, it's absolutely things that were needed. I think that the scaling of older zones is a wonderful, wonderful thing. I love that I don't have to touch Cataclysm unless I want to, and I can just go re-level through Mist of Pandaria every time I'm between 80 and 90 because it is the greatest expansion of all time. But, it's kind of one of those things that it's interesting. And I'm being an armchair dev here. I'm curious because there's no way I could do it better than they could, but it's always interesting to take time and think about these things.
Oh yeah, and in all honesty, I think about a lot of different things.
The one thing I did really enjoy about this Blue Post in particular is that it is good to see Ian Hazzikostas getting back into the forums and communicating with the player base outside of their Q&As where they pick and choose questions and avoid the hot topics. Speaking of hot topics.
You see, we're putting the cover sheets on all TPS reports now before they go out.
So, a little office space there for you. I wanted to take some time to talk about being staff for Currently Online. All three of us are staff members in very different departments. So I wanted to kind of talk about our experiences as staff. We're currently recruiting for all different kinds of staff members. So want to go through those kind of roles. Saph, how about you start with your experience as coming to staff at CO?
Oh boy. Well, I kind of lurked in the background for a long time in Currently Online. I think I've been here since December of 2016. And I just got tired of playing alone. I heard somebody ask in guild chat if, anybody was interested in being staff. So I said, you know what, why not? And I'm so glad I did. It was a better way of getting to know everybody. I love everybody here. And it started out with in-game recruiting and has since evolved into our outreach and retentions and our external recruiting. So it's been a pretty awesome ride so far. I definitely recommend if people like to help other people, or you think that maybe you're a little shy, that's fine. There's really something for everybody to do. You don't have to be the most outgoing. And if you just want to get to know us a little better, this is your opportunity.
Tell them about your staff experience, kind of where you started, where you are now. What are you doing?
I came into the guild May 2017, and was only in the guild about 2 months before. And I came in with the raid team before they actually bumped me up to team lead. Eventually, within a month, that team did fall apart. And so I then dropped into a community manager role. And I, enjoyed that, help keeping the guilds full of active people. Eventually I wanted to take it up a little bit further and then help the guild a little bit more. And so, with my experiences working through the school district, I decided to actually go out for the partner liaison position, and I'm actually enjoying that now. It's very interesting. It's it's different thinking. It's trying to figure out how to market not market. I don't know how to put it. Present.
How to get us awesome stuff.
Yeah. How to present the guild to a outside business and get us partnerships with them.
It seems like
you
we've
know, and
covered
so I'm enjoying that right now.
almost every single entry staff position. We're missing one, I think. No, two. So I started as an event manager back in December of 2017. I've been friends with Cold Crow a long time. He was like, "You got to do staff. You got to get involved. It's not difficult. It's just giving a little bit back so you can, or so we all can have something great in this community." So I did that for a while. I was leading events. There were only three of us. There was Heritage, Ochyro, and myself. Heritage ended up taking the executive side on the Horde. Ochyro went to the executive on the Alliance, and I kind of hung out in my event manager role, running seed raids after seed raids after seed raids. Then Ochyro ended up taking the promotion to VP of events. I moved up to the event executive for Alliance. We've grown that department. We have a ton of people over there now. And actually, since the last podcast to this podcast, I accepted the position for VP of Community Outreach. So we're all in very different positions within the guild. And I hear people say, "Wow, you guys take it seriously." And when you have a guild that's, I don't even know, 12,000 members now, organization helps. It's a lot of work to keep a group like this going, but it is so much fun. I'm so thankful to be able to be a part of the community like this.
There's nothing else like there. Like, there's nothing out there like this. This is where you could meet the most wonderful people and group up, and you're not sure what to do. You just go on a Discord, look to see if there's any events going on, or people pinging for Mythic Plus or PvP.
So,
like it's just nice. It feels like home.
It does. And it's not just a guild, it's a community.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and we're not just
Warcraft.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks.
Great minds think alike.
Yes.
It is not just World of Warcraft. It's, you know, we're out there in RuneScape and then Final Fantasy and Rust, and, you know, it's just Overwatch. Thank you. You know, lots of different games. GTA 5. You know, we're there. Join us. Come join the channels and you know, talk with us and play the games with us. And so that's what it's about.
Kind of want to give us an overview of what a community manager does.
And I mean,
so when they see that on the staff application that they go to fill out after this lovely talk, they know what it is.
Absolutely. So what a community manager does is it helps moderate our chats in guild, and they also help in-game recruit and kind of like keep an eye on everything. Make sure that, you know, nobody's being negative or saying stuff they're not supposed to in guild chat, and just keeping
our
the
guild
peace,
filled with new shining
moving.
faces to enjoy our lovely community.
Yes, keeping the guilds active with people that are there, not just log in, see nobody on. There's always people in the guilds. That's what's really great about it.
Team lead's a little self-explanatory from an outside.
Help with that.
Dev, do you want to kind of explain everything that team leads do outside of leading teams?
Well, obviously, you're leading your team, so everything that goes along with that includes recruiting, that includes the HR side of, you know, being a team lead, being that leader of the group, you know, knowing the fights, knowing the different classes and you know, different comps that are gonna work well in different environments. But you know, you're also, team leads are also expected to help moderate when they can. You know, and I think that's all staff, truly. Everyone moderates at some point.
Absolutely.
The
next type of staff that we have, they technically fall under the general manager banner, but I like to think that we're a little different and special because they are. and I have a place in my heart. The event managers, kind of what they do is they run an event once a month for their faction. It's really as simple as that. I think it has a low barrier of entry, but once you get in and you start going, so many of our staff really get insanely involved in the guild and run events weekly and things. So if you want to have a place where you can have creative ideas on events to run, my favorite's Gnome Darts. And if you haven't played that, I have to throw another event. It is so much fun. But it's a place where you can be creative as well. Event managers like Dev and Saph mentioned, every staff is kind of there to keep the peace within guild.
Right. Also, under general managers is the external recruiting department, which is the department I run. And if anybody is interested in recruiting outside the game, I would love to talk to you. And you could be as outgoing or as shy as you want to be. You just have to be able to work with me and do pretty awesome things.
They do, yeah.
And I think
they're the moderation team who actually just opened up applications for that department. It's been kind of a close-knit department for a while. They moderate guild chat, but they also do a lot of the back-end side of things. If you're interested in that, I'd reach out to Cold Crow, No Mercies, or Havelius on Discord and kind of see what that's about. The other things that fall under general manager are external game things. If you're involved, if you want to get involved in running external game stuff, you have a skill set that you think may be useful for the guild, back-end web development, graphic design, public speaking. I mean, there's things for literally everything. If you have a skill and you think that you could help apply it to the guild, talk to us. And if you're interested in applying on our website, currentlyonline.gg, under staff, the staff banner, there is a button that says apply. It takes you to a Google Doc. Fill that out and someone will reach out to you. We'll chat and we'll see if we're all a good fit. And it's been the best thing I've ever done in WoW. As much as I love the in-game side of things, like the stuff that's happening over the next few weeks, being a part of the teams being a part of the staff has been amazing. But speaking of the next 2 weeks, what are you guys hoping to accomplish before our next podcast? Running the dungeon.
Well, getting to the story, enjoying the story, and start gearing.
Cleaning out quest logs, cleaning out bags, getting ready for the story.
Done that, yeah.
Yeah. I'm hoping to see more people in our Discord. I'm so super stoked to be here as staff and
I'm
watch everything
so
light up
about that. I will say
with the new and
I will be hanging
players
out a lot in Discord and voice channels. The bar is typically my go-to hangout spot because I don't really tie it to a faction in particular. Dev hangs out in there with me. Saph's in there with me. Lots of different people are in there. So if you ever see any of us in the chat channel, it's a public channel, pop in, say hi. We don't bite. Yeah.
Not hard.
Not hard.
It's a blast. I'm really excited as we get into this next expansion. Yeah. Well, thank you guys for joining me tonight. Up next, we have a little bit of info about our upcoming Guild Lotto, followed by an interview that I had with Ochyro, our VP of Events. Right. Well, you guys have a wonderful night.
Time is money, friend.
Ah, right you are, Mr. Goblin. And what better way to make money than farming? Oh, Farming takes too much time? Well, let me tell you a little secret that dates back to the Pandaria campaign. A wonderful invention. A goblin, I might add, called the Sky Golem. What's the Sky Golem, you ask? Well, it's a flying mount that allows you to pick herbs without being dismounted. That's awesome, right? I agree. However, these things have skyrocketed in price. Sky Golem skyrocketed. But let me let you in on a little secret. Currently online, we'll be hosting a guild lottery with the prize being the coveted Sky Golem. You can get in on the action, Horde or Alliance, for as cheap as 100 gold. That'll buy you a single ticket. Each character can purchase up to 100 tickets, giving you 100 chances at that sweet, sweet mount. Remember what you said about time being money? Well, sometimes, friend, it takes money to make money. Look out for the Discord announcement for more details. Welcome back, everyone. I have Ochyro, or Ochyro, depending on who you ask. How do you pronounce it?
You know, I've always gone with Ochyro. A lot of people call me Och or Ochi, so Ochyro has really stuck.
Yeah, I definitely am an offender of calling you Och or Ochi. You'll see that a lot in chat if you're ever wondering who I'm talking about when I say, yeah, you need to ping Ochi. That's him. And tell us your title in the guild.
Of course. So I'm the VP of Warcraft events. I handle most all of our in-game public events. So not anything raid team or PvP team oriented, but stuff that we keep open for the entire community.
Very, very cool. For people that don't know, this is the department I started in. I really appreciate you coming on the show and talking with us tonight.
No problem. I'm extremely excited to be here. I listened to your guys' last podcast as well as the proof of concept, and I loved both of them. So really excited to be part of this.
Yeah, something most people don't know is this podcast wouldn't actually be here without you pushing me to do it. I came to Ochyro with the idea of the podcast, and he said, wow, that sounds amazing. You should do it. It's going to be a lot of work. I think were the exact messages I received from him. But since you said you've listened to the show, what are some of your favorite parts?
You know, especially with the last episode, I was really interested in your guys' coverage of the Q&A. I typically don't keep up with events as well as I should, so hearing a recap on that was really nice. Specifically, you guys had brought up the potential level squish. That's something I'd never heard, never even considered in Warcraft, and it really opened up a bunch of possibilities and got me thinking about it a lot more.
Yeah, it was kind of a bombshell when it dropped. Lots of different people talking about lots of different things in the community when it comes to that.
Definitely, it's something that if you look at how long the game has been around, I could definitely see the merits of doing a level squish, but I could also see the kickback that would come from the community, losing levels and basically making it so other people can get max level easier.
Yeah. If you would like, I would love to circle back to that after we kind of talk about your story and introduce the community to you. I think that we could have quite a little nice chat about that.
No, definitely. If we have time for it, then I would love to go through it, pick your brain on some of your thoughts, and I've definitely given it some thought as well.
So for the people that are out there that don't know, kind of tell us your story with CO, how you found currently online, and kind of where it's taken you and what you've done.
Sure. So I started, I've been playing since vanilla, on and off. I did some pretty good progression rating during ICC into Cataclysm, and then I took a break for quite a while, decided with Legion that I really wanted to get back into raiding. So when I came in to CO, it was actually through one of the raid teams. I was very hesitant at first. CO is a very, very large guild. I was very concerned about what that would mean. But the moment I started researching the guild some more, especially seeing their guild website, seeing the organization they had, the structure they had in place, I was blown away by what all they had to offer and how much effort people were willing to put into this community. It's something that I had not seen since probably back in vanilla and BC when you had the large guilds.
Yeah, it's always something I see new members to the guild talk about when we talk about that we're recruiting for staff members. I've heard people say, "Why do you call them staff? That's a little strange." Or "Why do we have vice presidents or executives? Are you running it like a business?" And while we don't run it like a business, nobody's pocketing any cash from this endeavor. It's all labors of love. I definitely see that we do need the kind of organization that brings, as you've noticed building the events department, and everything that you've been able to build and grow there. It having a guild with 12,000 members, just in Warcraft, along with other games, it requires quite a bit of coordination to make sure everything goes how we intend it to.
Oh, definitely. And that's really what I saw. Not just commitment from people, but commitment from the top tier of the organization, from the owner as well as the vice presidents, to make it a great community. So I was able to transfer from a raid team. I started doing farming events to try and help gather materials and herbs and stuff for the different raids. And that really led me to do some research and started springboarding me into larger events for the community. And then that just took off from there. I saw that we really had a lot of people who were interested in doing group events, but maybe didn't have the time or the desire to join a set team.
Yeah, and I think we've seen that with our pug groups that we've had for Antorus on both the Horde and Alliance side. Both those events are extremely popular, and we kind of get a bunch of revolving faces in there. But people get to experience the content in an environment that's not a raid team, but has a lot of the perks of being a raid team. And a lot of that is thanks to you and the events department.
I would definitely say it's for all of the staff that are willing to put in their time and effort. I know specifically for the pug groups, we have a lot of people who are willing to work with new recruits, really teach them the ropes of raiding. We also have a Raiding 101 event that was set up to help support it, and several of the raid team leaders have stepped in to provide additional training, oversight, and support to both events. And it has really allowed people who've never done raiding before, who have never gotten to experience that side of WoW, to test it out, see if it's something they're interested in, and really have a safe place to learn without having to deal with unknown factors, unknown raid leaders, what's going to happen, are we actually going to push through, stuff like that.
Yeah, it's definitely been something that's been really cool to watch. If you are coming into currently online within the past 6 months or so, you see that we've kind of had this events department. But prior to that, there were only a couple events managers, and it was kind of this new idea that's grown into a wonderful community. We seem to have revolving ideas of all different kinds of events to fit every kind of WoW player. I think it's definitely one of the major perks that our community offers.
No, I agree. And there's some events that have started up that I was hesitant about, some things that people approached me with, these ideas and these passions that they had, and they felt other people would also want to experience them. And we've seen some amazing things take off as a result from that. I've seen a lot of people step up into our PvP community, doing both world PvP events, open battlegrounds, rated battlegrounds. We've also seen people step in with transmog competitions, and a guild movie night, which is one of the biggest successes, I think, because it's something that anyone can participate in, even if they aren't part of WoW. Our other Discord community, our other gaming communities can jump right in as well.
Yeah, and speaking of events that I never thought would be successful, I gotta say, the first time that you approached me with the idea of running a seed raid or even coming to a seed raid, I thought you were crazy. And I'm not even afraid to admit it.
Most people did. It took a lot of convincing. The seed raid is actually what springboarded me into events. As I had originally mentioned, I was looking for farming events, ways to help our raid teams. And I stumbled across this new feature in Legion that allowed herbalists to pick seeds as they were herbing, and then they could plant those seeds. And up to 10 people could then pick the herb that came from that seed. The seed raid was a very good way to get 10 people together, plant a bunch of seeds, get a huge amount of herbs, and really help supply and funnel materials over to our raid teams. And we saw some huge growth and huge success as a result of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like it started as raiders, and a lot of our regulars were raiders, but we have a lot of goblins, as I like to call them, people that wanted to make lots of gold come in and turn quite a profit. It started out as we were trying to get 10 people to join our seed raid and convince them that it would be fun, to getting constant pings weekly. When's the next seed raid? When's the next seed raid? And it really was the thing that springboarded me into being so involved in the events department. When you have an event that's so successful, it's something different. And one thing I always tell new event managers when I was working with them, if you have an event idea that you think is crazy, tell us. No matter how crazy you think it is, it's something that you think would be fun. And I'm sure there's someone in the community that would love to do it, like your seed raids.
No, and that's really what I wanted to focus on more. The seed raids were successful. They were very beneficial. Above all, whenever I did one, though, I had a lot of fun. It was a great time for us all just to hang out, just talk, get to know each other. It took about 30, 40 minutes, so it wasn't a huge time commitment. And then you had a lot of pretty good memories of people just being themselves and not feeling like they have to fill a role or act a part as a raider or as a PvPer or as a staff or anything like that.
Yeah, there were quite a few members of the community that I got to know very well because of seed raids. Bree, one of our raid leaders, I would not have interacted with her too much just because our paths really weren't crossing outside of seed raids. But she was someone that was constantly causing the group to laugh in seed raids. She's got quite the personality, and that was a really cool way for us to get to know people like that. They really would have never crossed paths.
Agreed. And it really makes me happy to hear that. I wasn't the only one that was really enjoying them, that it wasn't just me pushing an agenda for those. Seeing other people step in, become passionate about it is really great. And then obviously in your case, that brought you on as staff. You took over those seed raids eventually, and you were able to do more events on top of that. So it's a great entryway into the community is through these events.
It is. And I'll actually take that to that note to let you know, in this podcast, we did talk about our different staff opportunities and kind of gave a highlight of what each officer position does. Do you want to take time to plug your current needs and what you are looking for in event managers? Kind of the needs, requirements?
Of course. It's actually fairly easy. The event managers, what I'm looking for is people who are really passionate about what they're doing, even if it's just transmog runs, if it's achievement runs, if it's pug raids. I really look for people who are passionate about it, because that passion then moves into the people who attend their events. And you can really tell a difference between someone who's just running something to run it versus someone who's really enjoying themselves. So I always try and look for passionate people. The time commitments vary depending on how much you want to put into it. The minimum requirement for an event manager is to run one successful event a month. Success depends on what your event requires. If you have to have 10 people for the event to move forward, like our seed raids, then 10 people would be considered a successful event. Some events only require 5, some require all the way up to 20. So we look at doing about 1 event a month. Several of the event managers do more than 1 event a month. And then we're just looking for people who are willing to put in the time and effort to help recruit people and get them on board with the event and signed up.
Yeah, and one thing that I hear people mention a lot is it hard to get people to sign up for your event? And it takes some work. You have to advertise in game and on Discord, but you also have the entire your events management staff to help you with that. Ochyro and Casimus both are managers in that department, and they're so great about helping get the word out and helping bounce ideas off of. So if that's something that you would be interested in after hearing this, reach out to one of them, talk about it, tell them your crazy ideas.
Yep, no, that's definitely something I would always encourage people to come talk to me, go talk to Case. Both of us would love to sit down, talk you through it. If you're still unsure, I can even walk you through a lot of the staff information, see if it's something you might be interested in. And if you're still on the fence, then I always just recommend that people come to the events, not to run them, but just attend them. See what we're all about, see if you enjoy the community, the people that are running them, and if it might be something you'd want to be part of.
Very cool. So do you have anything new coming up with the events department? Any events that you want to talk about? Anything like that?
So currently we are preparing for BFA, as almost everyone else is. That means that there's a lot of changes, a lot of things we have to work around. This is a lull in our events time, basically. You don't see any pug raids coming up until the raid is actually released. Battlegrounds, most people are going to hold off on those, or at least on doing rated battlegrounds and some of the group content until they're max level. So what I'm trying to focus on is events to help people either with leveling, with gearing, or with professions. And those kinds of events are things that even if you're not max level, you could participate in, go through, get experience with, and get ready for what we have in the future. Dungeon gearing events, Mythic Plus events, stuff like that are also going to be very big this expansion. Mythic Plus is one of those big hidden gems, I think, that Blizzard came across. They went through a couple different trial and errors with past expansions to make it work, but now they've hit something that people really love. And I've never seen quite so much commitment and passion to something that's outside of raiding. Typically, you don't see people being able to gear up, being able to push themselves that hard. So it's very interesting to see, and something we as an events department will need to work with.
Yeah, the first thing that I ever remember remotely like Mythic Plus were the challenge modes back in Mist of Pandaria. And those were not easy, but there wasn't much progression once you kind of defeated, you beat the gold level challenge mode. There was nothing above that. I really have enjoyed what Mythic Plus brings. It creates something unlike anything this game's really had, this continuous content that you can go even when the raid droughts are there. And Sati, he had his Mechanics 101 event this expansion, where he took new players and alts and anyone who wanted to go into low level keys and helped people learn different mechanics in the dungeons, how to do them, what to expect when you're pushing keys. And that was a really successful event that we saw and brought a lot of players into this, what once would have been the more coveted elite player environments that are now becoming open to everyone.
No, I agree with that completely. And specifically with the Mechanics 101 event, I saw a lot of people who wanted to do Mythic Plus, but really never wanted to take the risk. There's one thing to say about being in a pug raid, at least there's 20 other people, and you can blend in. But in a Mythic Plus environment, it's just you and 4 others, and there's a lot more riding on your shoulders, and it's a lot more apparent if something goes wrong. So I think Mythic Plus was hard for a lot of people to really jump into at first, and I think Saudi's event really helped bring people into it, got them a comfort level, a skill level that really benefited the rest of the guild, because those same people could then go off and run their own events or participate in other key runs or pug groups with a lot more confidence and skills and gear to get through it.
Yeah, and I think that that's the confidence is a big thing. We all hear horror stories of people being kicked and berated for not knowing mechanics or not having the DPS. And I think a lot of people like to forget that they were once new to this game too. And especially with Legion being as successful as it was. And I imagine BFA will bring the same kind of people back, or even players that played back in vanilla BC Wrath that haven't been around for all these new changes. It's a learning experience. So I'm really, really glad that we have this, the events department to help usher these new players into this new WoW that we know.
Oh no, it's I'm very glad too. And again, I'm very appreciative of the staff who've stepped in to really make these events a reality. Again, there's some of these events like the Mechanics 101 specifically that I would not have considered to run. It just wasn't on my radar. It never occurred to me that it might be a good event to introduce people. And I'm very, very glad that Saudi was able to show that it has a lot of potential, a lot of merit. And I think it's going to be very important as we move into BFA, because we're actually going to be focusing on Mythic Plus more as a guild. And we're going to be setting up a Mythic Plus tournament, which I know you guys have mentioned in your previous podcasts. But that tournament is really going to be a spectacular thing for the guild. And the more teams, the more people we can get involved in it, it's just going to really expand.
So are you going to be participating in the Mythic Plus challenge?
We are. I don't know how hard we're going to be pushing. I do have a Mythic Plus team that I've been running with throughout Legion. As we moved over, we transferred from Alliance to Horde for BFA, and I switched from a Druid to a Shaman. So we're in a little bit of a transition period as I get used to my new toolkit, and we're transitioning from me being able to tank to now me only being able to heal. So we're trying to get used to a couple new things, and then we will be off to the races, I hope.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to tell you, but you're not going to get first because that's going to me and my team. But I'll gladly stand up on the podium with you standing at second place.
Perfect. I will be in second place with you. And as long as we beat everyone else, I'm very, very happy.
There we go.
The only thing I'm concerned about is there are some very competitive people in our guild that are very good at this game. And I do not count myself among them. So I will either need to work extra hard to beat them or just sit back and enjoy the show.
Yeah, we definitely do have those players, and we have some very skilled and talented players. But this tournament's not just for them, and I want to clarify that for everyone. This is a great place for you and your friends to have fun, give you a purpose behind Mythic Plus other than just gear. Even if you don't think you're going to win, there's no reason not to try. There's a lot of gold on the line, and at the worst,
and I believe that was there was a total of 1 million gold in prizes. Is that correct?
That is correct. 1 million gold for the first season. So that will be something that that'll be very interesting. I think we'll see a lot of competitive players who are ready to push and try for something new.
I think that will be a great thing, and I really think that it'll help revitalize some people who maybe got tired of running with large raids, larger groups, and just want to hang out with their friends. I mean, Mythic Plus, you only need 5 people total, and there's a lot of tips and tricks, and with all the different affixes and talent specs and builds, you can really make it your own, and you don't have to follow the exact same strategy that every other guild uses. You can experiment and try new things that work specific for your group.
Absolutely. So your comment earlier about the level squish, it's kind of had me thinking while we've been talking. Do you have anything else you want to plug about the events department? Anything you want people to know? This is your time to say whatever you want.
The only thing I'd have to add is even if you aren't part of the events department, even if you aren't really interested in being staff, if there are certain events you would like to see us put together, feel free to talk to me about them. I keep a list of all potential event ideas. It's something I address with my team. I make sure we're talking about it, seeing if there's interest, seeing when we can get stuff on the roster. So if there's something you would like, just feel free to talk to me and we'll see what we can do.
Very cool. Well, before we get into our chat about the level squish, I do want to thank you for coming on and talking about the events department. And also thank you for giving me the opportunity to grow within the guild, because as I've mentioned, and I mentioned in this podcast, you'll hear it when you listen, that you were kind of the stepping stone that allowed me to discover my talents within the guild. So thank you.
Well, I appreciate that. I really do appreciate you having me on the podcast. Again, I think this is a great example of the passion that our community has. You taking this step, putting together this podcast, which I know takes countless hours every week, is something really special that I think a lot of guilds don't have currently.
Well, I hope it's fun and enjoyable word I was going for everyone, because we really enjoy making it. It's a lot of fun, and it's something that, like you said, a lot of communities don't offer, and we want to continue to make our community stand out above the rest. But with that being said, what are your thoughts on this level squish that was tossed out? You know, what were your thoughts be if you log in one day and instead of being 120 you are 60 or 70?
So I've actually been giving this one quite a bit of thought, thinking about what it would mean to me, how Blizzard would implement it. I came to the realization that for me, a level squish would not be a huge deal. The way I see it is the max level content for that expansion is what's important. You don't really see a lot of people going back and doing past raid tiers of any kind. I mean, we still have Ulduar, where people will try for their Herald of the Titans run using the correct leveled characters. But other than that, there's not a lot of purpose to it. I wouldn't actually be surprised if they started doing dynamic scaling across the board, which we've already seen rolled out here in Legion and become very prevalent as the main leveling form throughout the Broken Isles.
And that's something that they mentioned it, and they said that it had been tossed around, but there was nothing definitive. And I almost wonder if that's not the case, and that they do have this in plans with 7.3.5 and the world scaling. I think it would be a lot simpler to implement at this point, when you could just change vanilla zones to scale, say 1 to 30 or 1 to 40, and then BC and Wrath just drop those down. I also think that it would be a much more welcoming experience for new players to the game.
You know, and I was thinking the same thing. If you look at how they implemented the zone scaling in Legion, they changed the old vanilla zones, which is Kalimdor and the Eastern Kingdoms, and anywhere in those two zones, you can go from 0 to 60, which is a huge deal to some people, to some completionists, to some people who want to go through all the content. On top of that, as a separate issue, they also changed how quickly you could level, which was not met with as much positive feedback, positive reception. But I still think the zone scaling itself was very successful. And I think it would be very easy for them to take that zone scaling and, like you said, just change the numbers around. Instead of 0 to 60, you're now going 0 to 30. They combined Burning Crusade with Wrath of the Lich King content. That would be a very easy place for you to merge the levels as well. Instead of going from 61 to 80, what if you just went 61 to 70 or 31 to 40? I don't see that it would make a huge difference to the gameplay.
Yeah, and I mentioned this talking with Dev and Saph. I've been a huge fan of the scaling, mostly because I did not enjoy kata leveling. I know a lot of people think it was great. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. I thoroughly despise it and avoid it almost as much as I hate leveling through Warlords of Draenor. But Pandaria is by far my favorite leveling zones ever. So I love that I can spend more time than just the intro quest to the Jade Forest there, and really get to experience that leveling experience again, which I so desperately missed.
And I agree. And I think that's another thing that dynamic scaling does for new players. Previously, a new player coming in, even without heirlooms, even without any boosts, they wouldn't finish off a zone, and they would miss out on some of the storyline. And if you actually pay attention to the storylines throughout World of Warcraft, they've really set up some pretty dynamic storylines as you level. Some are much better than others. As I go back and replay through some of the zones, I'm reminded of how much Blizzard how far they've come with their storytelling. But it's really nice for me to just complete through a zone, experience all of it.
Yeah, and I think when I first heard it, I had kind of the brash reaction a lot of people have. Well, losing levels would suck, but the more I've thought about it, I actually don't know if it would really change much from a veteran player experience, and I think it actually would make it better for leveling alts and for new players to the game. I mean, we're at 120 come next week. I don't know if you want to keep going up. Do we want to get it to the point where it's 200 levels? Another MMO I played growing up, Maple Story, it had a level cap of 250, I think, originally. And it may have been 200 or 250. And that was just so daunting. It took months and months and months and months and months before anyone even hit that. And, if WoW gets to that point, I think it'll struggle to find a new player base.
I would agree. I believe, like you said, 120 is a daunting number. Add on to that the way that they have slowed down leveling, and that 120 looks extremely daunting for new and even returning characters. I recently went through and got all the way from level 20 up to level 85. And there's certain zones where it was a grind, and even with focus and purpose, I was about ready just to walk away from that character. It was just a burnout on it. So there is a daunting factor, there is a time factor. On the flip side, though, there is always that boost that you can use to bring your character up closer to max level. The only concern with me in pushing people in that direction is WoW's a fairly complicated game, as is any MMO. There's a lot of nuances to every class and spec, and a lot of abilities and setting stuff up. And I don't feel that brand new players get a good tutorial just going through the boost. There is some general information given to them about what spells to use, how to set up their bars, but it's very limited compared to the overall knowledge you would get from leveling the old-fashioned way.
And I actually brought this up with Dev and Saph in this week's podcast about the boost and heirlooms and the whole leveling bit. Ian Hazakost has posted that 7.3.5 was overall a success, but 60 to 80 is an awful, awful, awful grind. And they were making some changes. And they wanted to slow down the leveling experience for new players because anyone could buy heirlooms and you could slap them on and be 110 in less than a day played very, very quickly. And what the idea that I mentioned to Dev and Saph was that I'm all for the boost, particularly for veteran players, though I will say I've boosted many tunes. The only tunes that I've played are tunes that I've actually leveled and then just boosted another one because I didn't want to pay the transfer because it's about the same price. But my idea was, what if heirlooms are locked behind, you can't buy, so currently heirlooms are level 60, 90, 100, and then 110. So they go through 60, through 90, through 100, and then through 110. So my idea was, what if those are locked behind, if you haven't leveled a tune to level 60, you can't buy heirlooms. And then once you level 1 through 60, you could buy the level 60 heirlooms. And then once you hit 90, all your heirlooms are auto upgraded. And it does become less of a gold sink. Don't get me wrong. And that may be hard in the eyes of Blizzard with the WoW token that they sell nowadays. But I kind of thought that, that still gives the benefits and the perks to veteran players while still encouraging a vanilla type leveling experience for new players. And then my thought for the boost was, what if we lock that behind requiring to have a level or a character at that level, very similar to the way that the Death Knight was locked behind a level gate in Wrath until either WoD or Legion.
I understand where you're coming from with that. I'll go over the heirlooms first. I guess I'm not as up to speed with the heirlooms. I assumed you still needed a higher level character to buy them. Obviously, to have enough gold, you would, unless you used WoW tokens. But when they initially released heirlooms, you couldn't get them until you were max level because it required, I forget what the currency was
Valor?
in Wrath, but it was the current.
Was it Valor?
Valor. It would require Valor from completing dungeons, raids, PvP. You could then use that Valor to purchase the heirlooms, and you had to have a max level tune to get the Valor you needed. So I think they might have tried something like that. They might have metrics for if it worked well or not. It is a valid opportunity, but it does lock people into having to level a tune all the way up from 0 to 120 before they can get heirlooms. And that goes back to our previous conversation. That's daunting. Some people might never get to 120 because they don't want to. Or, on the opposite note, someone gets to level 60, unlocks the level 60 heirlooms, and then just levels a bunch of alts to level 60. That also might be difficult because they might enjoy the leveling, but they don't get to experience all of WoW. Going over to the boosts, as I mentioned, I think the boosts can be detrimental to new players. There's a lot that goes into the game, and not everyone can pick up on it. But you do have some people who are very familiar with MMOs, who are very familiar with games with similar mechanics, and they could probably boost and get the hang of it fairly quickly. And I think you would risk alienating them by not giving them the opportunity to catch up quickly.
So I guess my question is the issue with that the leveling experience is too long and the level squish would be a good thing? Or is it that the leveling experience is outdated and WoW is too focused on in-game?
That is quite a conundrum there. I would say it's a little bit of both at this point. I personally enjoy leveling. I like going through the storylines, but I can tell you some of the zones and some of the levels are very hard to get through. The scaling is still off in some areas. Some stuff hits very, very hard. I had a lot of difficulties leveling my priest through some of the areas, unless I was disc. And that has to do with both the spec and the content. Shadow spec does not do very well early game, which is another downside to the leveling process, is you level this character without really knowing their full potential, because their full potential is based on max level with the correct trinkets, we don't have tier anymore, but with the Azerite gear, with the Azerite traits. So it's it's a very hard one to find the right answer for. I personally still love the old content, but I think Blizzard can incentivize better ways to do the old content, possibly add more achievements. One of the ideas I heard that I personally fell in love with was adding heritage armor for all of the old races that requires you to either do the old content to unlock or doing archaeology for those old areas to unlock. And that's a way where you can incentivize old content without forcing people into it and forcing them to only go this path because you feel it's necessary.
Interesting idea. And, a lot of thought-provoking questions posed. I'm so glad you came on to have this discussion. It is absolutely, it'll be something that I'll be excited to watch as we watch WoW continue to grow. And as we go through this, I may have to have you on once they announce the level squish in 2 years, or we'll see how it goes. But I do appreciate you coming on. I'm trying to keep the podcast under 2 hours. So I appreciate you coming on. It was a blast. You've been such a mentor to me in CO, and I hope to be able to do the same for others. And you'll continue to create wonderful event managers and event execs, and just create this wonderful department that is a heartbeat to our guild. So I thoroughly appreciate you coming on and taking the time to talk to me today.
No problem. As I mentioned, thank you very much for having me. It really means a lot to me to see you taking ownership of this podcast and putting so much of your time and effort and your passion into it. If the events department does the heartbeat, then I definitely think this podcast could be the pulse, checking how we're doing, taking a look at the guild, examining it, letting other people know about it. So I'm very excited to see where this goes as well, and I hope you the best in all of your endeavors.
Well, thank you. And that's how we're going to end the podcast today. Guys, don't forget to check out our website, our Discord. If you're not currently a member of our guild, ask questions, hop into Discord, ask any of us. We're always willing to help. If you have any questions about links or anything that were talked about in this show, go ahead and check the show notes. And thanks for joining us and listening. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Next time, it'll be BFA.